Are you a young adult looking to better plan your financial future? Well, I want to let you know paying off all of your debt isn't always the strategy to take. It's more about having clarity, discipline, and courage. So stick around as I unpack financial planning tips for you for your future. Hello and welcome to the Something New Show. I'm your special guest host, Jordan Linscombe. Today we're going to dive into planning your financial future. So whether you're a young adult or someone looking to reset your financial future, we're going to dive right in with some tips that have helped my wife, Mindi, and I as we've grown our business, as we've invested in real estate. And I'm going to share some stories that helped us in our journey up until now. So as we dive into this today, let's first kind of unpack the problem. I think in our culture and across the world, oftentimes there's a lack of vision, a lack of clarity and discipline on what people can actually do with their hard-earned money. We see problems with debt. People are in credit card debt. There's a whole variety of issues that people run into. And so if you've seen the Dave Ramsey approach or you've heard things on the radio or TV, there's a lot of things out there to help people get out of debt because it's such a just drastic issue across the U.S. here where we live. And while there's some great teaching there and there's some good principles, I'm actually going to unpack some different concepts for you today on what has helped Mindi and I grow wealth and build a better financial future for ourselves without actually paying off debt. And to me, it matters more that we're looking at having really clear vision, having a lot of self-discipline, and getting really clear on where we're aiming and what we're going towards. Another problem that I want to unpack is some people work hard, they build a business to become entrepreneurial, and they build wealth, and they're just looking at it from a selfish lens. They're thinking that the money is going to solve problems, bring some kind of fulfillment on the inside that they actually never fully achieve. So that's another aspect that you have to be really clear on when it comes to wealth building from the beginning, is how can you cultivate a great financial future, but also look at what's the bigger picture on how you have fulfillment in life. So our challenge to you would be really, if you're planning a financial future, how do you start with the end in mind? What I'll tell you for my wife, Mindi, and I, it's not retirement. And there's so much of a market out there. There's so many products. There's so much of a culture hitting people in the U.S. every day about planning for retirement and building for their future in that realm, in that way. And there's some wisdom, by all means, in planning ahead. But from our perspective, we're not looking to just get to a certain point and then stop adding value to society or stop adding value to the world. I come from a family where my dad's dad did not retire. He worked till he was 82 and then was forced to go into the hospital. He was leading construction teams, working on projects. I doubt my dad's going to retire. He continues to do some amazing volunteer work, collaborating with folks in extremely poor regions of Mexico. I don't see him retiring as well. And so from our perspective, I think Mindi and I are on a trajectory where we want to keep adding value into the world. Yes, we get to different seasons of health. We get to different seasons of age. But we want to build a plan that allows us to continue to give back in all different seasons of life, not just get to a certain day and then kind of hang it up and sit back and watch the world go by. I really want to challenge you, if you're a young man or you're a husband watching this show, to think about the stages of life you're in. Because for me, I want to continue to be a warrior in this season of life, to fight, to build things for my family first and foremost, for our companies and for our businesses, and then get into a stage of being a king. And in that stage, you've really built something to be proud of. You have a well-established family, you have companies, you're financially secure, right? You're doing things that add value and bring restoration into the world around you. And then as you get older, you can get into a phase of being a sage, full of wisdom, giving back to other kings, giving back to other warriors, and really investing in your life with strategic stages. So again, if you're a young man watching this, I want you to think about life as a warrior stage, a king, and then being a sage. Now, with that in mind, to me, that sounds like a lot more fulfilling than just getting to a certain point and retiring. Again, we have to start with the end in mind, not just the financial aspects of it, but the holistic life aspects of what does building a financial future really allow you to do. And so part of it, which we'll unpack as well too, is you'll get to a point of financial freedom, but also of more time freedom, where you can further cultivate your creativity, your gifts, give back to your community, to this world, and to those around you. So again, for the guys out there, warrior, king, sage, how can you craft a plan that helps you further move into those phases of life? All right, so let's jump into some of our story. When Mindi and I first got married in 2005, we were not raking it in. We were eager, we were working hard, but we were working as teachers. So we both taught Spanish at a great school here in town in Colorado Springs. Our kids still go to that school. I had worked hard in high school and in college to really steward the money that I had and the resources that I had invested some in mutual funds and things just to help it grow during my college years. But I came with this nest egg or amount of money to say, how can we make sure we have our first home as newlyweds? So I was super proud of the fact that we were able to get our first home as we got married in 2005, move into that. And I got to tell you, and I'll share some of the mistakes along the way, I didn't fully understand the whole mortgage process and down payments and all that. So, man, huge learning curve. That's how life is sometimes, right? So we were able to put 20% down on that first home. It costs about $219,000, which is a good chunk of money. But home prices here in Colorado have gone up drastically since then. So now we kind of smile, but it felt so huge at the time, and it was. And so as we invested in that, we were, there was one fun lesson that I learned was that we do our down payment, everything's set, and this nice couple that was selling us the home, they said, hey, my husband's really handy. There's not a deck on the back part of the yard. Would you be interested in him crafting, building a deck for just $3,000? We can tack that onto the mortgage and the final price that you guys are investing in here. And in my limited knowledge at that time, I was like, there's no way we can add $3,000 more. We're like at our ceiling for this whole budget for this house. Little did I know, it probably would have made like a $7 difference or less on the monthly payment we had on that home for the next 5 years of owning it. So lessons learned along the way. But if you're early on in your home buying process, just really evaluate if you ever get an opportunity like that. That was something I really missed, because the home would have been even more valuable when we went to sell it 5 years later, and we could have enjoyed the deck. All right, so we invested in our first home, but we realized the teacher salary was not going to really cut it for us. So we started working multiple jobs. Mindi taught piano lessons. I taught drum lessons. We did different odds and ends to help in our early lives, in our early years. And then a little bit further on, 4.5 years into marriage, our oldest child came. So we were looking at what some other kind of property opportunity we could pursue. So we got a piece of raw land, actually lived with my folks for about a year and a half as we constructed our first custom home, which again was a big leap and a big learning curve for us. But we said, how can we cash out of this first home? And then from there, take some baby steps towards something better. All right. So I'm going to unpack more about real estate and how it's really impacted our financial situation in a great way, more in a moment. But that was one avenue, that's one channel with which we've better planned our financial future, is taking baby steps with buying homes, eventually selling them for a better rate, and going from there. Another aspect real quick that's helped our financial reality is having a mindset from the beginning, though, of giving back, saving, all along the way. So when we look at money, we're thinking about what do we need to actually spend, what do we need to save, and what do we need to share. All right. So for Mindi and I, as followers of Jesus with our faith, we give back in what's called tithing. We'll give 10% off the top to our local church. That helps bring restoration in our community, helps bring hope and restoration across the world, right? So we believe strongly in that. We've been doing that our entire lives, even before we got married. As we started, even though we didn't make much early on as teachers and then worked with not-for-profits, we continued to do that as well as giving back in additional ways on top of that. So tithing and giving have been a key part. Another aspect was saving, and then also we did what we could with retirement accounts and things early on. Even if it was a small amount, that did help us, okay? So there's a lot of value in well-planned retirement accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all that approach. Work with a financial planner, find one that's an A-plus player that's really good. There's a lot of value there. We do that to a certain extent, but we don't put our full hope and trust that that is how we're going to build our financial future, because there's different alternative investments and different things that can help you by the numbers much more if you look at other things like real estate, et cetera, okay? So we get a couple of years in to our careers and trajectory, and then we wanted to start our own business. So Mindi came to me one day and said, hey, we've talked about doing our own business at some point. She said, I didn't have the best experience when I was purchasing my wedding dress. What about starting a bridal shop here in Colorado Springs? And so with that, we talked it through, and I said, hey, listen, I'd much rather you we go for this than being in our late 50s, our 60s, and looking back and regretting that we never tried. So at that point, we didn't have children. I said, this is the time, this is the moment. She put in some great homework. We did our homework. We got our hands dirty and got in and started the whole process of creating a business, starting from scratch. And so that was a key turning point for us in our financial future. Now, it didn't start with what you see behind me here. I'm in Something New Studios inside of our company, inside of our commercial building. Did not start this way 17 years ago. We had 900 square feet, a really humble space. We got in hands-on as much as we could to build out that space and do the improvements on our own with everything that we could. Got to a certain point where we were pulling our hair out and outsourced a few things like the flooring and things along the way. But we opened that in 2008, and we worked really hard. And over time, we learned how to work smarter. But with our business, we were also looking at the long play and at a long-term plan, saying, how do we keep this business strong and sustained and not just pull everything out of it from the beginning? So there are different ways to start a business and to do a startup. The way we chose was to not pay Mindi a salary for 3 years. Again, I'm going to say that for 3 years, we worked really hard and kept investing back to the business and didn't pull out to pay her or to overstrain the business. So there could be better ways. I know there's different approaches and strategies, but that's what we did. And we were able to break our first lease, move out of 900 square feet, move into 3,000 square feet, and then take our business to the next level and scale it for that kind of season 2 or phase 2 of Something New. Fast forward, what you see behind me is the evidence of hard work through all of that phase 2 to get what we did as phase 3 of having our own building, having our own space, and just great opportunity that's come through consistency over time. So to recap, giving, saving, investing have been some key aspects of our financial reality, but starting a business was a huge aspect, and keeping it disciplined, keeping it clear, even when it hurt, even when we didn't feel like it. We had late nights. We invested, more than I have time to unpack here today. All right? But our learning point in that, and this is something huge I want you to understand, is we learned how to implement and how to commit 110%. Too often, people have an idea or they have a vision, they want to get after something, but they'll just give it 75%. They'll give it 83% and expect incredible results. But what we have learned is if we say yes to a project or a big commitment, we are saying we have to give 110% and give our full focus when it comes to our working hours, when it comes to our energies. We're going to fully commit to that to help that business grow, cultivate, and succeed. The same has happened when we've built different custom homes throughout the years. We know that if we're going to say yes to this, it's going to involve time, it's going to involve energy, it's going to involve decision-making, which pulls on your emotional and mental energy, week to week. But when we do that, we are all in. When we do that, we know we're going to commit together and make it happen. I remember with our current home, we had to pick out pieces of artwork, things that were going to go on the wall. I remember being awake at nearly midnight, and I wanted to go to sleep, and there's other things I wanted to do. But we had some timelines with the home builder in different aspects that we had to achieve, and we stuck with it. That's one of hundreds of stories. It's a simple, silly one, but one where you have to commit 110% for a key project, starting a business, or even doing a home project with real estate. So for Mindi and I, unity is a key aspect that's helped us succeed in that realm. So if you're married, again, I just want to remind you, unity in your decision-making is a massive part of building a better financial future together, relationally, financially, all of the above. All right, so with that, we also started to get to a point in our careers, early in our business, where we wanted to say, okay, what's the next 5 years look like? 10, 15, where are we going? Again, starting with the end in mind. And so we started to develop a vision board. A vision board is so powerful because you can simply print out pictures of things that you want to achieve. And that could be emotionally, relationally, with your family. On my vision board in the past, I've had pictures of a dad with kids crawling all over, a picture of great sleep, a picture of exercise and toned body, but also just for your financial aspects, like could be a home, a business, other things you want, a vacation, other things you want to invest in and achieve. Putting those on a visible vision board, and you could put that in your closet, you could put it behind your clothes where you pull that back and see it and it's just for you, or maybe it's for you and your spouse. But the power of a vision board is something I wish we would have known about even earlier. But there is something really, really beyond words and special when you can have it in front of you on a daily basis, see something, see a goal, keep it in front of your mind, okay? There's ancient wisdom in the Bible. It says that without people perish for lack of vision, okay? But if we do have vision, if we do have clarity, if we do focus our minds, that's where we can see a lot of consistency and focus so that we can achieve really beyond what we often think in our younger years. So I want to challenge you again today. Part of building your financial future is reshaping your mindset on what you think you can really achieve. If you asked me and Mindi in 2004, 2005, do we think we could do what we've done so far? Maybe, but I think we've definitely evolved in our belief in what God can do through us and in us, not only to bless our family, but to bless others around us, okay? So it starts with vision and your mentality on what you can do in different seasons of life. All right, so the vision board was something that really helped us. It's practical, it's easy. If you're not doing that already, I encourage you to do so. It's life-changing, it really is. Also, perhaps you have one, but you need to update the photos, update the pictures on your vision board. Do that this week. I'm in a season where I'm doing that for myself and the board that I have. From there, we also got into okay, how do we develop a 5-year plan? We started looking at, okay, we have our home. What could it look like to get a second home, an investment home, where we could generate more income, build assets for life, and not just have, kind of a home and a business? How could we take things to a different level? All right, so with that, I'm going to give a disclaimer here. I'm going to give you some great stories and some great advice of what's worked for us, but you need to work with your own financial planner, CPA, legal support, etc. What I'm going to share has worked for us doesn't mean it works for everybody in their situation or the market where they live, okay? All right, but I can tell you, tried and true for over the last nearly 20 years of marriage, Mindi and I have seen some great results from what we've invested in and learned about when it comes to our approach to strategy and investing in real estate and what that means for your financial future.
Many young professionals ask me how to navigate selecting a career with purpose. Discovering our life path can feel overwhelming and out of reach, so we developed a tool to make finding your greatest contribution practical and achievable. Head to the show notes and click the link to immediately download our practical guide to discovering your greatest contribution. This is a series of journal prompts and pages developed by me, Jordan Linscombe, to help you discover exactly where you need to be.
So real estate, let's talk about that for a bit. Why real estate? Well, I want to tell you what I grew up seeing was my dad and my grandfather hedging their bets on real estate more than the stock market or other types of investments. So they were very risky in certain ways. Like my grandfather took risks. He put it all on the line. He bought properties across town, where I grew up in Louisiana. And some people kind of, would think, what was going to happen there? Before you know it, the whole town grows out to that side in that area. And he has this very valuable piece of real estate. Okay, and then from there could parcel off and sell off different pieces of that. Brilliant moves. And so I grew up in this atmosphere of hearing, well, the stock market's really risky, but we know that real estate works if you do it well. Okay, so that's part of why I believe in real estate. I've seen it with my own eyes. But secondly, stop and think about this for a bit. What else can you buy or invest in where you only put 20% down, sometimes less, and you own the entire thing? I know how it works, that the bank has a deed, the lender has a deed, et cetera, but what else can you do where you put 20% down and you own the entire thing? Okay? And also, if you get a good investment property in a great desirable place with high demand, a renter can cover the note for you. So you own the thing, you only put 20% down, a renter is covering the note for you, and meanwhile, if you're in a good market, the asset that you purchased is growing in value over time. So those are a few aspects of real estate. Another is there are definitely some tax advantages, just from basic real estate investing. If you want to go next level, feel free to message me at the Something New Show on Instagram or comment here below on YouTube. But there's other aspects like a cost segregation study. If you're remodeling a home, a commercial property, or investing in a new one, a cost segregation study can save you tons on your taxes. So if you're curious, send a comment. We'll unpack that more for you offline. Another thing Mindi and I love is real estate is tangible and it's visible. When we take our hard-earned money and say, what do we want to do with this? How do we want to steward our money? If we invested in real estate, we can see what our money has gone towards, and we can see actual change and improvement right away or over time. And then we look at investment properties really like a great savings account with a much better interest rate. So it's a lot of work up front. Like we've purchased a few properties here in Colorado Springs and then sold several of them. And it up front, there's a lot of work. We've put in the elbow grease. We've put in our own sweat equity of cutting the grass and trimming limbs and doing paint and things over time. We started really basic, okay, as we got some investment properties. Over time, as you want to have a property manager or a handyman or other people help you, okay? That's more of the goal so that you have time freedom and can best use your time and your hours. But it is a lot up front, often for when you're starting small. But when you cash out a property that's grown in value or grown in a good market, there's nothing like that feeling of seeing like, wow, we invested this, a bit of time went by, a lot of work, but then we were able to pull this out at closing when we sold that property. That's like an incredible bank savings account. Okay, that beats letting it just sit in the bank at growing at 1 or 3%, over time. So we've just looked at them as well as like savings accounts, okay? And with that, a quick note, we are convinced that the things that we earn and cultivate, we really need to steward well. So if you are perhaps scared and you just say, I'm just gonna let my money sit in the bank in a simple savings account and not do much with it, you have to understand the bank is taking your money along with hundreds of other people's money, and they're going and invest it. They're going and creating loans. They're going and do things that help steward those resources so that it can grow. So please be smarter, push yourself to study, to research, and do more. Do you need some liquid savings that you can pull on in case of an emergency, something you can get within 1, 3, 5, 7 business days? Yes, okay? If you're interested on some suggestions or things that I use to get a good rate to help steward those funds well, but to get it back quickly, again, send a comment or DM. I'll be happy to share a few ideas with you, okay? But letting money just sit in the bank for 1 or 2% is not your best option, okay? That bank is taking what you've given them and they're going maximize it elsewhere. So be smarter and have the courage and the clarity to know how things work so you can put your money to work in better ways, okay? All right, so I want to unpack a little bit of our approach and our strategy for when it comes to real estate. Okay, so we shared a little bit on the why. Here's some of the basics of what we've done. It's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. Okay, the first thing is the location and the demand for that location. Now, we're super grateful. We live in Colorado Springs. It was just voted one of the number three place to live in the United States. Beautiful, incredible market. Home values are solid. All right, so that's our story where we are here. Perhaps you have a very different market, but I think a lot of these principles apply if you wisely use these when it comes to investing in real estate. So find the best location and a high demand location, the best one you can afford within your budget and realities. When Mindi and I have purchased places, we've often looked at, when it comes time to selling this, how quickly could we sell it? Is it a place where people are going to be knocking on the door in that neighborhood trying to get homes or rooftops in that place? Okay, so location and demand has always been a key aspect for us, even when we started small. A second aspect is we've typically tried to put 20% down when we invest in a property. That prevents you from paying mortgage insurance. It shows the bank that you're serious. Allows you to do a really good equation as well as like, what does it mean to get to the monthly payment, bottom line amount for investing in that property. All right, so second thing is paying 20% when you can. The third aspect that's really key, this is probably the most important, is the interest rate. They're very high right now as I record this here in the U.S. Some of the highest we've seen in my recent lifetime. Now, folks that were around in the 70s and so forth, they kind of smile and say, hey, we've been through this before. There've been even higher interest rates, right? So as we're recording this, some rates are 7%, more like 8%, okay? So you have to be really smart with your interest rate because that dictates so much about monthly payment and all of the things. It's the linchpin, okay? But hopefully, if you're out there, you have your first home, or maybe you invested in a second. If we go back a couple of years ago, some rates were even in the high 2s, 2.75%, 3%, 4%. If you have something 2, 3, 4%, you have something pretty special if you own property in the U.S. at that rate, okay? So the interest rate is a huge part of the approach. Fourth is then now you can determine what's your monthly payment. What are you really signing up for when it comes to, staying consistent on those payments? Another thing you have to take into consideration is insurance, taxes, and then margin. If you're buying a property, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to need some money for repairs, for the unexpected, for the unknown. So again, location and demand, planning on putting 20% down. Yes, there are other ways, but in general, try to plan on 20% down, getting the best interest rate you can, monthly payment, tax, insurance, and margin. All right, let's go back to the whole thing as well, though, starting with the end in mind real quick. When it comes to real estate, your credit score really matters. So even as you're young, staying consistent with your bills, credit card management, all of that. That's why I'm saying it matters more about discipline, clarity, vision, and courage than it does to be fully debt-free. Or should you pay off your credit card debt on a monthly basis? We're of the perspective, yes, as much as you can. Have we had certain months in our life where we couldn't pay it all off? Yes, there have been aspects of that, right? You make the minimum payment, but goodness, we get to as quick as we can in our earlier years, of clearing out credit card debt and just using those wisely so that we can build a good credit score. I'll show you another insider quick thing. We'll come back to real estate. Is I kind of made a mistake. I didn't even have a credit card till I was 24 years old. That's not the norm maybe in the US, okay? What I realized is I could have started playing the game wisely and earlier as far as building my credit score. When we went to get our first home, I didn't even have a credit card. And they're like, oh, your credit's not the most amazing. I was like, are you kidding me? I don't have any debt. I'm not involved in all of that, but you got to play the game. You got to understand the credit score element and what that means. Okay, let's bring it back to real estate because then it impacts the interest rate that you can often get when you're negotiating and working with lenders, okay? All right, so we're looking at investing in real estate. I want to let you know that Mindi and I, personally, we do not subscribe to the be completely debt-free approach. We have a lot of respect for what Dave Ramsey has accomplished, how his work has helped millions of people get their lives, their financial lives in order and back on track. However, I want you to understand that that's pretty simple elementary math. And it works well in a case where somebody needs more discipline. They need more clarity and structure to get things, in line, paid down and paid off. It can work. We know some people with extremely successful businesses and financial situations who subscribe 100% to that approach. For us, however, I want to encourage you with a different idea and approach here, is that if you can get clear on understanding the realities of finance, the realities of debt management, the realities of investing in real estate and in other types of assets, if you have a diverse portfolio and your debt to asset ratio, how much debt you have and how valuable the assets are that you have or will have along the way, you can take an approach of living with healthy debt, for example, against investment properties and other things, and then leverage that well into growing your financial future in exponential ways versus paying everything off as you go along the way. I'll give you a quick example. We have some friends, they built an amazing company, they sold it off and realized they had tens of millions of dollars to work with. And so they just felt this compulsion of like, hey, we have this home, let's say it's $3 million. They said, well, let's pay off our home and just kind of get that feeling of being debt-free with the house. The husband later looked at it and realized, goodness, we had this basic payment on our home. I took this huge chunk of change, huge chunk of money, paid off the home just to feel better. But now I regret it because I realized if I had invested that chunk of money and gotten, let's say, a 10% return over time, it would have stewarded and grown it so much more than just paying that off to feel better. So let me unpack this in a more basic example for us, okay? Let's say you purchased a home that's $500,000, $500,000, and you put 20% down. That means you have $100,000 into that project. In simple terms, you have $400,000 of debt against that home, but that's healthier debt to pay down over, let's say, a 30-year mortgage. Now, if you get to a financial spot where you say, we can throw $100,000 at this house, more, or we can eventually get to where we could pay it all off, just take some time, pen and paper, make your own spreadsheet. But if you had a 4% interest rate on that mortgage, even a 5, okay, but you were able, instead of paying all of that off right away, you were able to invest that other significant amount of money, that $400,000 over time, at something that's getting 6 or 7% return. It's pretty basic math when you really chart it out to see how that money could grow if you have bought in that home in a great area, okay? That money can grow in other healthy investments with appropriate risk and get you a much better return than paying that off just to feel better. So it's situational. You've got to do what works for you and the plan that you're following. But if you look at the numbers, living totally debt-free when it comes to paying off real estate and other elements often doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you're in the U.S., you have to understand you live in the most special real estate market that has existed in the history of humankind. Nothing has grown in value more over time in recorded history than the value of U.S. real estate. From the establishment of the country until now, again, rates are high. In this moment, you might look at it and think, oh, that's a rough area in which to invest. But over time, if you look up the numbers and the statistics, the value of U.S. real estate has outpaced gold, has outpaced all these other elements, and how it has grown exponentially in value. In our market where we live, we have seen that over time, just in our 20 years or so of life out here, right? But what I want you to understand is there's a lot of great teaching out there that's helped people get their lives straight. If they don't have the discipline, they don't have the clarity, they don't have the vision, they need that structure, great. However, I want to encourage you to be smart and really look at the numbers. Is if you had a great rate, why go and pay it all off if you can take additional resources, invest them at a better percentage rate, get a better rate on return, and continue to faithfully and sustainably make the payments you signed up for over 15, 20, 30 years remaining in that mortgage. All right. Again, debt-free, There's a lot to it, but to me, it's more about clarity, discipline, and courage. Those are some of the key things I want you to take away from today's episode. All right, so for Mindi and I in our journey, as we start to wrap this up, we've invested more in single-family homes over time. Often we've had them 2-3 years or so, made them better, kept them in great shape, and then would sell them off. We're thankful that we're in a great market, and that's gone really well because the market here has grown. If you're in North Dakota, if you're in a far-reaching part of the U.S., you have to be wise. You have to be smart of the realities of your market. How quickly do home values increase or not? And judge accordingly with the kind of decisions you're making, right? Beyond single-family homes, there's aspects like duplexes. They can be a really smart approach where you could live on one side of it and rent out the other, especially if you're younger. Really keep an eye on the market for duplexes in your area. That could be a great approach for you. We have several friends somewhere at our house this week have really grown and catapulted their financial reality by investing in their first and then eventually second or third duplex. You want to grow that over time, you can get into fourplexes. You really get established in real estate investment, then people get into multifamily, like apartment investing. There's other aspects like self-storage, mobile home parks. There's all these next level things that you can continue to grow in when it comes to real estate investment. So I love it that the sky's really the limit. There's so many aspects you can go further in over your financial career. A couple of quick tips though that have helped us when it comes to investing for our financial reality and future is those single family homes we did as often as we could in a place where we could go to it and be back home by dinner. That's some wisdom that was imparted to us early on. If you do an investment home, think about, can I drive there, fix anything myself, or work with a handyman, and then be home in time for dinner? That will make it a lot easier for you to sustain, have momentum behind that project versus something that's a whole airplane ride away, have to go have a huge chunk of time dedicated to seeing a property and coming back, all right? So especially if you're starting early on, think about limited achievable objectives in your real estate investing. How can you start small, get early gains, but do something where you come home at night and you say, hey, that was doable. I didn't feel like I lost 2 days of my life checking on, a plumbing issue across the country. Another element is you can really look at, if you get your second, third, fourth location, Brandon Turner, who we've enjoyed getting to know over the last year and a half through a business network, he talks about this concept of thinking about real estate investments like you have your own farm. Maybe it's different properties across your city, your county, your region, where you can go and cultivate and check on those things in your farm, check on those different properties, check with the renters and tenants. And then also, again, that same concept, you could be back home that evening. There's a lot of power in that versus getting really spread far and all over the place. So again, clarity, discipline, and courage as you take investment opportunities into real estate. So as you do this over time, if you stick with this, there's just millions of resources out there. There's entire companies dedicated to help you understand how to grow in real estate investment. It can really become a side hustle to help you. If you're working a consistent job, good on you, keep that up. But I want to encourage you to think beyond. Think beyond how can you invest in something that grows and cultivates over time while you're doing your hard work. For me, in our story, I went from being a teacher to working at a not-for-profit with a cause that I really believed in for 14 plus years. Really proud of that work. I could have been making 3 times the money elsewhere. I really could have. I don't regret it. Was happy for what I did. But with that, I started to realize, how could I develop a side hustle of investing in real estate as I did that work and as we cultivated something new with our business, okay? So I want to encourage you, take advantage of the opportunity. If you're in the U.S., over time and you get the resources, you can develop that side hustle of investing in real estate. Or eventually it can become your full career or your full-time job or the business you have of managing and cultivating your real estate portfolio. All right? We live in a place here in the U.S. where that's a beautiful opportunity not every country has. I promise you there are millions of people who would love to be in your shoes, even if you're working a great W-2 job, but you have the opportunity to dedicate a couple hours per week to investing in real estate. Are you kidding me? You have it so great. You have so many opportunities if you're here in the U.S. And so I want to encourage you to take advantage of that. Study up, learn, sharpen your skills and knowledge, and take chances in smart ways to help build your financial future through real estate as you can and get that clarity and vision. All right. So if we come back to the whole, matter at hand, when it comes to building your financial future, I just unpacked for you some things that worked for Mindi and I. We started small. We've probably done 4 or 5, 6 different properties now. We've had some where we built it up, we sold it off. We're like, we would have loved to hold on to that one. We had a mountain property once we so loved it. It was so perfect. But we got to a place where we were able to sell it off to build some financial margin to take some next steps in big ways in commercial real estate. I want to let you know that if you wisely do that, you wisely invest and then sell off and get to your next opportunities. If you do it well, you can look back and really see a trajectory of catapulting your financial realities to new levels. That would be so much harder if you just relied on a paycheck and just relied on a retirement account. So for us, we didn't start with our beachfront property, Something Blue in Florida. We started with really simple things. It was good. We leaned in, we redid the paint, we redid the yard. It's not something we were promoting, on Instagram and all the things to begin with. But over time, we stayed consistent, and we've been able to invest and level up to different properties that we're so proud of. And I want to encourage you that just the sky is really the limit on what you can invest in, what you can do over consistency and over time to get to a portfolio of properties that you can be so proud of, that you can be really stewarding in great ways. So as we wrap up, just want to come again to it. Start with the end in mind when it comes to planning your financial future. Yes, you want the financial means to be taking great care of your family, to really create great experiences. But more importantly, I want you to think about how can you create a financial future that's not just selfish, but that's giving back, helping bring restoration in a broken world, helping invest in other kings and other warriors around you as you get older, and also build a financial future that allows you time freedom, not just money freedom, but also the time freedom where you can cultivate your creativity, your God-given gifts and skills in ways that really help build your community and bring restoration to the world around you and give back to great causes. There's no feeling like that, where you've wisely prepared for a financial future. Not just so you can get a Lambo or you can get a fancy car. That's not our approach. With it, we say, how can we do things that really help bring eternal change, lasting change, impacting change on the lives and people around you? So let us know any comments, questions here on YouTube, any key takeaways from today's show. We want to hear it from you. We'd be happy to further engage on any questions or ideas you have. On Instagram, you can reach out at the Something New Show. But so grateful that you joined us here today. Stick around as we talk more of how to create a life worth celebrating, and building a good financial future is a part of that. So you can look back and celebrate well of how you've built a reality that helps your family, but also helps others. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share the show with somebody who'd find value in this. Cheers. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share with a friend. Also, follow The Something New Show on Instagram and Facebook. If you want a fuller experience, watch the show on YouTube to help you create a life worth celebrating.